Hi guys, so today I'm talking about the Allure of manifesting. Hi Mel. Yeah, so today's all about manifesting. Yeah, I'm just gonna wait a couple more minutes before I get started, just because there's still people logging in. So that's what we're gonna do. Yes, this is about manifesting. So that means bringing things into your life consciously. Yeah, this is not, because everyone automatically manifests by default anyway. And by the way, my name is Rob, and I'm the creator of the Elura Code. And this is all lived experience, so this is not theory. Yeah, and I learned it in some pretty incredible ways. So, okay, all right. So let's get going. People are still joining, but they can catch up. So the core issue with why manifesting doesn't work is because there is misalignment. There's misalignment between intention and signal. So, what that means is that what you're looking for and the broadcast to the creation or acquisition of it are all jumbled up. There's no flow, there's no coherence. And so that's why it causes things to be delayed, to be slow, or to just flat out not work at all. And a lot of times people give up before the juice shows up anyway. And no matter the size of the thing, it's always it's always the same. It's just that when we're creating bigger things, there's more things there's more things to create. So, for example, if you're building a business, well, there's lots of steps that need to be in place before you can actually start doing business or before you can scale or whatever stage you're at, or if you're pivoting, if you're looking to open it up into a new market, whatever the case may be. So, first, understanding. Now, you'll hear a lot of people talk about that manifestation is about identity. And it is. However, I don't like to start with that because identity encompasses everything about you. And it's a lot overwhelming. They just say, be the person that you want to be and everything will come. Well, yes and no. Not right now, Connor. I'm not taking anybody on. And besides, you and I have never communicated. So I don't take on people if I haven't spoken to them through the chat first. For that reason, you fucking idiot. Yeah, so you just got blocked. Yeah, so guys, you can see why I'm pretty I don't have any tolerance for that kind of bullshit. So if you want to go do that, you can go somewhere else. So anyway, as I was saying, there is a direct correlation with the quality of your signal and the outcome that you get. And also this whole idea of becoming, well, yes. And it's not really that you are becoming the person. You already you are already that person. It's just buried under years and years of conditioning. And it's about removing the conditioning as you connect more to your deeper authenticity. But that is a lifelong journey. So what we want to talk about is about getting this party started, right? And how we relate to energy and creation. So you're not blocked. There's just a mismatch between what you're looking to create and outcome and the steps in between. So the direction and/or, so it's the place where it's coming from. You may heard of a lot of people talk about coming from scarcity or coming from a lack mindset. Mindset is only the thinking, and it doesn't really incorporate the totality of what is actually happening. I mean, yes, it's good to watch your thinking, but in many cases, thinking, there's two different types of thoughts. There are fleeting thoughts, and then there are thoughts that actually have substance to them. The fleeting thoughts don't do anything. And that's because they don't have anything with them. They're just it's like when you're in a negotiation, if you're not compelling and really able to effectively, with authority, communicate what it is what you're trying to establish, then it's not going to have an impact on the other person, right? So it's the same thing when you're interacting with the field, is that signal, it has to have some power. So fleeting thoughts, they just. Now there's another piece to that where people find that, and now I will preface that thinking does matter. Absolutely it does. But it's not the only piece. And the bigger piece is, because if you repeat thoughts enough over and over and over again, they're gonna become automatic. But unless they've got some, like I said, unless they've got some substance backing them, and I'm talking spiritual substance, and this is actually quantifiable because it's more of it's a thicker matter that does this, and this is what creates the power and what creates us to be able to actually have control over the field and create what it is that we're looking to create. So how does reality actually work? Well, reality is actually a feedback system. So space and time are not fixed. And this is not, woo-woo. This is quantifiable physics. Einstein proved this clearly without a doubt with his equation E equals mc squared. Oh, hi, Tylene. And his theory and his relativity experiments. So you're in class right now? That sounds like fun. So what this allows us to do is it allows us to actually manipulate time and space to our advantage. And how do we do this? Well, first of all, we have to understand actually, before I do that, I just want to outline a couple of takeaways from this. Is that you'll have if you didn't, you will have an understanding of how this process actually works, and that you actually have power to create and have have a little bit of say in the way things happen in your life, based on your energy and the way that you create, the way that you communicate, the actions that you take, etc. So now, everything is a feedback system. Everything responds to energy. It's either going to respond in a coherent way or in a distorted way, depending on your signal. So, your signal is basically the vibrational frequency that is emitted from your mind and body, and it is an electromagnetic signature that is coded with information pertaining to what it is you want to create. Now, depending on the information that's in that signal, meaning the thoughts, the beliefs, and the emotions that are active, and what is actually being broadcast, yes, your body can broadcast. It can transmit frequency. It can also receive. So it's a broadcaster and receiver of frequency. This was first studied by the HeartMath Institute. It was discovered back in 1991 that the heart's magnetic field, first of all, is 60 times more powerful than the brain. But second of all, it emits a much more coherent signal. So when we learn to connect through our heart and use that as the driving force in life, it's limitless to what it is that we can create. So, time and space. It's been proven they are the same thing. So we have this thing called time dilation. And it's basically the expansion and contraction of time and space. So the easiest example I like to use is that, have you ever been driving somewhere and you're in a hurry or you're frustrated and you hit every fucking red light on the way? Yeah, of course you have. And it feels like it takes forever. Well, that's because you're emitting an incoherent signal and your experience is responding. Now, say you're out with a bunch of friends and you're just having the time of your life. And the next thing you know, it's 2:00 in the morning. It's because now this is what we call collapsing time. So it's when there is coherent vibrational expression present. And so this concept is key in terms of understanding how to create things in your life and do it basically to do it faster. Because everybody wants to know how to do it faster. How do I get the thing? When am I gonna manifest my soulmate? When am I going to be successful, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it starts when you stop asking when you're going to be successful, because now, if it's a curiosity thing, fine. But if it's a genuine frustration thing, then you're just putting up more roadblocks. Oh, hey, Genevieve. Is it Genevieve or Genevieve? I guess it depends on whether you say it in English or French. So when we're putting out a signal, the universe responds. If it's the cleaner the signal, the easier it responds. I like to play the find the parking spot game. And 9 times out of 10, I never have an issue. Genevieve, okay. So we literally have the ability to collapse time and to create things in our life by putting out a signal, creating a vibration in our body and mind, putting out a signal, and allowing, by virtue of law of attraction, allow that to come back. And it starts off with, oh, hey, Mar, Nye Cropper, Ethan, Alana. Hope everyone's well today. So we are talking about vibrational alignment for manifestation. So this then includes one that really depends on what sort of a context you're working with. Generally speaking, learn this information and learn it now. Start learning it now, because you are at the age you are. The neural pathways in your brain and body are not as well established as somebody who's a little further on. So when people start getting bad habits, this is where they create bad vibrations. This is where their signal gets all muddled through wrong thinking, etc. Living in distortion, living through conditioning, and not living through alignment. So learning this information, I would say, is absolutely crucial to anybody. And the sooner you can learn it, the better. Now, there are a number of laws that apply in terms of the way that the universe actually works. I call it the law of creation. I didn't invent them. So the longer people wait to learn this kind of information, the longer they're going to be living in a, oh, hey, Tiana, butterfly, the longer you're going to be living in distortion. And what that means is you're going to be living by your conditioning, by your limiting belief patterns. And you're not going to be able to create the life that you want or that you're capable of. And this isn't just about positive thinking. This isn't just about affirmations or any of that kind of stuff. It's much more, it runs much deeper than that and much more detailed. So the way that I do this is the way that I teach this is I teach this first, but when I work with people one-on-one, I actually work with their actual unique design, because then we can use protocols that are unique to their energy and how their energy system actually works. Oh, thanks, Jen. Addie, T. So this becomes very, very tailored because everyone's design is completely different. And so when people understand, the way that they make decisions, their way of being in the world and how they broadcast, when we actually work with those in parts work, and we actually, you can, you cut your time in half. Working with design it's like having a roadmap to your own success instead of having to figure it out. Right? I've spent the last 20 years figuring this stuff out because I didn't come across this design piece until about 4 years ago, and it has been a fucking game changer in terms of the efficiency and the coherence that I've been able to navigate. So now back to those laws that I was talking about. When we're talking about this, there's a law called cause and effect. When you're at cause over your environment, it means that you are in control. Not manipulation control, but you are directing your energy in the directions that you want it to go. Now, this isn't about micromanaging. This isn't about controlling people. This is about controlling your energy in the direction that you want it to go based on what it is you're trying to create. Okay, now let's get into some mechanics here. So we've already established that the reality is malleable, and that your body and mind they broadcast frequency, they interact with the universe, and you're able to collapse time with the higher clarity of your signal, and that equates to how good you feel. So if you're feeling like shit and you're angry and you're pissed off, or you feel like everyone's done you wrong, trust me, you're just going to keep getting more of that crap. But when you actually take responsibility for this, and you get a sense of empowerment, it's a complete game changer. So first thing we want to know is we need to know what we want. Now, this is where most people get stuck because they have no fucking clue. They know what they don't want. they don't want to date a narcissist. Okay, so what do you want? Because the universe responds to frequency and whatever's encoded in that frequency. So you really have to consciously think about, okay, well, what is it that I want? And the easiest way to start is to start where you're at. Hey, Vincenzo, thanks. Avari, thanks for liking the live. Yeah, you can't start on Pluto when you're only on Mars. So the thing to do is to have a really good think about it. First of all, are you wanting to create something in a specific area of life? Are you just looking for more well-being? Do you want to do you want a new car? Like, what is it that you're trying to create here? Right? And then define it. Write it down. Not in your phone, on paper. And the reason we write it on paper is because it brings it. First of all, it's far more powerful because the act of writing activates thousands of neural pathways where when you're typing it with two thumbs, it doesn't have the same impact. So writing it down, very important. And by the way, I'm not making this stuff up. This stuff is stuff that I've used in my life and I've had much success with, and I learned it. And this is just, oh, thanks, Avari. Yeah, so so define what you want. Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to work with our signal to get it so this gets to a place. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road. So you've heard people say raise their vibration. You got to raise your vibration. Well, what does that even mean? So there is a scale of consciousness called the Hawkins scale of consciousness. And it's literally just that. So it goes from shame down at the bottom, which is about a 20, up to enlightenment, which is 1,000. So we want to move ourselves up that scale. And you've heard of people talking about working with the subconscious and rewiring it and all this kind of stuff. And yes, but that limits our belief system to just the physical body, and that's only a part of it. But it's actually the information that's within that electromagnetic frequency that is running through the body, that is being emitted by the body, is the part that's really important, because that's your quote unquote frequency. So what do we want to do? We want to supercharge that with new information. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, there are 1,000 ways of doing it. Learning this information from different sources is the best way. And you want to be using sources that are reliable and that are proven. Because let's face it, most modern coaches on the internet nowadays are just, excuse me just for a moment. Hey, Turco. So, yeah, most of the information out there is, they'll tell you a few things, but there's no real foundation. And that's what needs to happen. Is there needs to be practices in place. Hang on a second. Okay, Carolyn. So there has to be a foundation, because the reason why is because you're sorry guys, I've got allergies and my nose is a little it's bothering me, so I apologize for that. Um and I'm having a blank. So we need to establish a foundation, because up until this point everybody's full of wrong information, and they have a most people are walking around with a negative ball of energy. So we have to thanks Hannah, Blondie. So we have to recreate that, and we have to shrink that negative ball of energy with a positive ball of energy, and so we can neutralize the negative energy and allow it to transmute. So how do we do this? Okay, so I've got another masterclass where I go into this in nauseating detail. You can actually go to it's on my YouTube channel, and so you can check it out there, masterclass, Allure Code masterclass. But basically, we want to clean up our energy. So how do we do that? There's a million different things that you can do. So as part of learning this information, you need to start learning this information. Well, how do you do that? You get books, you read books, you listen to audios, you go to events, and you start participating and making this a habit. Because eventually, and basically, because what you want to do is you want to basically brainwash yourself into believing that this stuff is real, and that you can achieve it. So say you want a new car, right? Okay, so what do? You go down to the dealership, you talk to the salesperson, you sit in the car, you test drive it, you get pictures. Say you want a Mercedes, you buy Mercedes in cut out pictures of Mercedes in magazines, make a vision board, watch watch reviews online of different Mercedes. So you become thinking about it, and now you're broadcasting. Thanks for the rose, Scarson. Now, because now you're thinking about it. Now you're broadcasting Mercedes or BMW or Lexus, whatever. Doesn't matter. But you want to be thinking about it in a way that where you get to the point where you feel as though you are already in possession of it prior to doing so. And that's the key. Now, a lot of people will think that they're quote unquote thinking about it, but they're actually thinking of the lack, because it's not a negative orientation. It's a positive orientation. You want to be excited. You want to be focused. And you have to be pretty single-minded about this too. You can't be trying to manifest like 100 different things, because your attention is going to be all over the place. Thanks, Hannah. So if your energy is scattered, it's going to show up in your results. Which leads me to the introduction of another principle, which is the law of correspondence. Which is your outer experience is a reflection of your internal state of being. As above, so below, as within, so without. Thank you. So if you have a lot of inner dissonance, it's gonna show up in your relationships, in your manifesting results, everything. So this is why we want to create coherence. And when we're focusing on things that we want and thinking about things that we want and feeling about things that we want, that is how it is created. So it's all about the feeling, really. I mean, a lot of people will think it's about the techniques, or it's about the or it's about the this and then that. No, it's not about the external aspect. It's about the internal experience. It's the energy behind everything. Because when you get good enough at this and you believe in it deeply, you don't even have to. Things will just freaking show up like poof. Now, in the beginning, you will be doing what is called, I call it an emotional override, because you've got all this conditioning and different people are at different stages. Some people are just naturally good with, I mean, let's face it, the two biggest areas, well, the three really are health, wealth, and relationships. Everyone wants to get rich. Thanks, Ava. And Crisp, how's it going? And everybody wants to have like the dream relationship, and everyone wants the perfect body, right? But in order for those things to be expressed, you have to have that internal coherence first. Because it's the broadcast of the energy and the movement of the energy, hi there, that actually creates the experience. So one of the things Arnold Schwarzenegger said long ago, and I quote, "Ah, you got to be the muscle." And what he meant by that was, hi. Thanks, Ava. You're appreciated. What he meant by that was, oh, hi, Devin, is that you actually have to develop a connection with your body. And so if you're trying to get, if you're trying to be Mr. or Miss Universe, then you've got to have a better connection with your body. So what does that look like? So in terms of lifting weights, it's actually, and this practice of body awareness is a very crucial key to longevity in this game. And this is something that I go into in a lot more detail in the code, and in a lot more detail in my one-on-ones. So, and just as a side note, I had another episode on my podcast go live this morning. So if you want to check that out, it's about working with the Akashic records in terms of manifesting. And so what that basically means is it's getting your signal to such clarity that you can access these much higher aspects of wisdom. So anyway, you can go to my website, alluracode.com, and you can like the website. I don't know much about Scientology, so I don't I don't get into religion. I believe in what I experience and what resonates with me. So now you may hear people talk about spirit guides and your spirit team and stuff like that. And basically what that means is the feedback that you get from whatever it is you're emitting. So I can't tell you, 1,000 times this has happened where I will be needing a piece of information and I'll just kind of put it out there. And then 10 minutes later, an hour later, I'll see a post. I'll get into a conversation. I'll get an email. I'll hear a song. Sometimes even if I'm driving, it'll be on somebody's license plate, like with number codes and stuff. So the universe is communicating with you 24/7. So it's just a question of being aware of what it is of where you're at in your pursuit of what it is you're looking for, and being able to read the signs, right? Like it still blows me away just how intricate and how amazing this whole process is. So, yeah, so cleaner vibration. That's what now the easiest, in my opinion, the easiest way to do that is to start going to the gym or start doing yoga or any type of physical activity, because that means you're moving your body, you're oxygenating it, you're you're releasing endorphins. And but what that does on an internal level is it also, the signaling that's happening in your body becomes more coherent, because now the body is working at its optimum. And this also means now that your mind is working at a much more optimum level. And when your mind and body are working at a more optimum level, you are able to then broadcast at a much higher degree of clarity. Your thinking is clear. I mean, I don't have to talk to people about the benefits of exercise. So, we talk about aligned action. What does that mean? It means doing things that are in that are necessary for you to create whatever it is you're creating. And you'll know, because you're going to feel motivated. Not all the time, but you're going to feel motivated to want to do stuff. When you get that first book, and you're going to want to start reading it. By the way, I'll mention some books as we go along. So, but don't also, guys, I've got so much stuff out on social media, like my videos on my TikTok, my Instagram, my YouTube. So all of the podcast episodes are also on my YouTube if you want the video version. Otherwise, you can go over to Spotify or Apple and just put in Allura Code podcast, and they're on there. They're on there. Like I said, I just had another one go out this morning. So if people are looking for, yeah, if people are looking for something a little bit deeper, I do offer one-on-one sessions, both single and extended. And I've got a few other things in the works that I will hopefully be launching very soon. And incidentally, if anyone's interested in their design, I have get your free design chart on my website as well. So you can just go there, put it in. It's completely free. Yeah. Now, learning how to use it, that's a whole other story. And using it in conjunction with how this works. So, and if you're more interested in that, then I would suggest going to my YouTube channel and checking out a masterclass on an overview of the code itself. Because I get more into the energy piece of this. This is only one small piece of the code in its totality. Like I haven't even finished, like I'm not even close to any Devaj, how's it going? Any impressions in regards to, I'm not sure what you mean. So reality is a feedback. You put something out, law of attraction, it comes back. Yeah, I can do a few. Okay, moving on. Okay. Now, sounds good, Ava. Yeah, I got so much information. I could probably talk about this stuff for like a year. So, why manifestation stalls? The biggest one is because people bypass their inner truth. So, this would be for people that have been doing this for a while and they may have had results and now they've stalled. So, people think that they can do what's called a spiritual bypass, which means trying to constantly do a workaround and try and manipulate their way around without having to deal with something head on, because they don't want to deal with whatever that nagging piece of it. Maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's a job, who knows? Because it's these when the energy gets contracted, it's not expanding, and therefore it's not creating. And the thing is that, you know, sure, people can relate to this, where, you know, something happens and it's like a little tap on the shoulder. A few months go by, it just keeps getting louder and louder and louder until finally, you know, you're forced to deal with it. People trying to force things to. I was in a business partnership a few years, and as we got into it, I really started to notice how the person that I was working with was completely out of alignment with the the way that things needed to be done. And it just, you know, it wound up costing us a lot of time. So we had to restructure things, and I eventually wound up dissolving the partnership because it was just too far gone. So the reason I say this is because now, how do we deal with misalignment? Well, it's very easy. Is that we change the way that we're doing things. In a lot of cases, all it means is just going back and regrouping and actually looking at our energetic signature at the time, meaning what are we thinking and feeling that are driving our actions. And a lot of the time, you can be thinking something and you don't necessarily have to change the thought, but it's what it means underneath. And it's not just about the thinking, it's about the energy with the thinking, because the thinking comes out of the energy. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed that. So you could, because we have all the different frequencies already in our body. I'm sure one day, you know, you've had kind of a low day and you haven't felt very good. And then the next, so you know, you have some food, you go for a workout and you get a good sleep. The next day you feel great. There you go. How to arrange a read, like, like to get your energy read. Shoot me a DM, Jen. Oh, you mean these things? Shoot me a DM and I'll send you the link. So this becomes I mean, the first part of this is just learning how to, you know, it's learning the technical stuff, but it's also developing the habits that you need to do. Like, for example, like learning the information and developing the habit of reading, or listening to audios and stuff like that. Like, you know, I've got, I don't know how many audiobooks I have on my phone. And yeah, the biggest challenge is that people just they don't they don't follow. When you start to feel bad, that's usually an indication that you're off. There's some resistance somewhere. And it's often because hi Miriam, people are focusing on what they. Yeah, yeah, Jen, if you're interested, yeah, like I said, just follow me and shoot me a quick message and I'll get you taken care of. Perfect. And so the reason why there's resistance there is because people think that they're focusing on what they want, but they're actually focusing on the lack of it, which is in essence focusing on what they don't want. So here's a little piece to help you clarify what it is that you actually want. Take out a piece of paper, and like I said at the beginning, paper, not computer, paper. Write it down. Creates a much stronger energetic broadcast. Because when you write something down, it becomes real. Because now it's physical. And make a list of all the things that you don't want. Maybe you just want an area. Maybe you just want a. Oh, hi, Maya. Maybe you just want a different experience in a particular area of life. Maybe you want a car. Maybe you want a dream vacation. Who knows? Just start writing it. Just start writing it. Because it gets it out of your, because if thoughts have nowhere to go, that's just basically that's what anxiety is. It's just energy with nowhere to go. So when you channel it into something, writing it down, get it on paper. Because now you can go back and reflect and you can go through all this stuff and say, okay, well, no, that's not really something that I wanted. That's just, that was just something that was a fleeting thought. So that I really don't have any connection to that. And then it's a lot. So when you go back through, write down what you want, or rather write down what you don't want, go through it and say, was this just was this actually me really not wanting this? And it's like been the, so basically categorize or reflect on it. And then you can say, okay, so these are the things that I actually want. And then you can just kind of pick and choose which one is going to be the more, and then prioritize them in order of importance. And this is how we, eventually when you get good at it, you don't even need to write shit down because you'll just know. And this will also allow you to stop focusing on the lack. Because here's the thing. There is a piece of anatomy in the back of our brain called the reticular activating system. And basically it acts like a filter. So whatever you're thinking about and feeling and so on and so forth, it directs your energy. It directs your energy and your focus in those directions. So, anyone ever notice this? Whenever you buy a new car or you're thinking about a new car, all of a sudden you start seeing the damn thing everywhere? There you go. Because that's how this works. And that's just it's physics. All this stuff is all physics and neuroscience. Talking about manifestation and creating things in your life. All right, moving on. Okay. So, now I've already talked a little bit about foundation, a couple of foundations, but I'm gonna bring them up again. Actually, okay. So you guys can see here. The first one is discernment. So this is going to be. I mean, these are all ongoing. It's never like you get to a level and then it's just done. Why is discernment so important? Simple, because it allows you to start to discern with what is truth and what is fiction. Because we don't want to be chasing fiction. A fiction, the biggest piece of fiction is that we're not good enough. That is simply due to conditioning of unreal and illusionary expectations and belief systems that have been placed on us based on how we were raised and the influences in our life. But the truth is that everybody is worthy. It's just a question of finding what it is that everyone is worthy and capable, but everyone then is also worried. So people can do anything. And one of the biggest things I say to people is like, do you know how to think? And of course, well, everybody's going to say, well, yes, I know how to think. Okay. So if you know how to think, so do you know how to think a thought? Or do you think it's possible? Chase Hughes, he's very based on influence, but he also definitely believes in these laws that I'm talking about. He actually did a video on it recently. If you go onto his channel, and it's excellent, and he talks about these ancient mystical laws that are, yeah, I love Chase Hughes. He's awesome. I've been listening to his stuff for years. Well, yeah, the emotional dad one. It's kind of like it's kind of like the way karma works. So, but yeah, this one discernment. You know, this is very important, and it's just like, but the key to all of this stuff it is in the at the beginning anyway, is consciously taking part in it, because eventually it will become second nature to just be to be very good at discerning, truth from fiction, because you'll feel it. Because once you become, as you do this work, you become more connected to your body, and you become more connected to your emotions and your intuitive capabilities, and you're just going to know what is truth and what is bullshit by virtue of the way that it resonates in your body. And that is different for different people. And I go into that more into the design work. So, next one, humility. This is pretty straightforward. If you, as long as you're not like a sociopath or a psychopath, humility is pretty straightforward. Humility is about being open. It's about taking responsibility. But in this context, it's more about being open. It's about being able to see things as they are. Because if you can't see things as they are, that is an illusion. And as I said, when we live through illusions, that is when we experience resistance and doubt. And that's what causes things to not come in. Energetic reality. Okay, so I've already talked about this a little bit, but energetic reality is basically that everything. This is actually the first one of the first laws. Because everything is energy. Everything is made of energy. Everything vibrates. Everything is in constant motion. And the only reason we don't have what we want is because we've been conditioned to think we can't get it, which is complete bullshit. And everyone's on a different timeline too. Everyone's on a different trajectory. There is a such thing called divine timing. So when you learn to work with this energetic reality that we live in and realize that we're not just physical beings, because our actual body is actually made up of energies. So if you look at your arm under a microscope, you'll see the molecules and the cells and all that jazz, and everything's moving. And it's like it's in motion. It's life in motion. And when we focus on the energy first and focus on creating a quality broadcast instead of a shit broadcast, that's what is going to change our reality. Now, vibrational movement, it's just that. Everything is moving. Everything is vibrational. Everything has energy, or everything has a magnetic field. Even a rock. You can call it consciousness, which is what everything is created from. A lot of people, like scientists and stuff, they try and they try and objectify consciousness. It's too vast and it's too ever changing and expansive and deep, and so you can't really quantify it, because it's everything that is, was, and will be. So understanding that and being in awe of it makes a lot of sense. Okay? So I already talked about cause and effect. So you're either at cause or you're at effect. So what that means is you're either actively taking charge or you're a freaking victim. Oh, hi, Christy. Yeah, and victims are the ones where bad shit happens. You'll hear things like, "Oh, why does bad shit always happen to good people?" Well, there are vibrational reasons, and people who are quote unquote good people have emotional dissonance. And what that means is that they have lots of contrary vibrations happening, which creates chaos. Okay. And now this is by far the most important law of all. It's the law of attraction. It is always working, and it basically like attracts like. Okay? And this concept of deepening is, so when we are constantly learning new information, experiencing it, and working with it, a deepening of it is inevitable. Because we want this to get to a point where not only is it second nature, but where we're actually living through Source itself. And there is a process of this, which I work with those on my one-on-ones, and which I go to in more detail in the other masterclass, which again is on my YouTube channel, and you can go there. It's Allura_code, and just go to the playlist and you'll see masterclass. And this is about going into our body. And this is about using our conscious awareness. It's about maneuvering our own consciousness to experience it. And this is what creates inner peace. Okay. Next. Okay. So, as I said, you define what you want, and you want to rate. You actually want to do more than raise your vibration. You want to get a burning desire for what it is you're trying to do. So this is the scale of consciousness that I mentioned earlier. So if you see, shame is at the very bottom. Okay, I just realized that there's a bit of a typo at the bottom here. But you get the picture. It starts at shame and it gradually goes up. So actually, being angry is better than guilt, because guilt is down around there in the bottom too. Most people are under 150. So they're in the anger, resentment, pride phase. Hey, Sophie, which is horrible. That's where 99% of the population live. You want to at least get yourself to courage to take the next step to get into neutrality. Because once you get there, then things start to work a little bit. But when you start consciously spiking your thing, you're going to be spiking it up into the acceptance, up higher. I mean, it won't stay there until you actually get your, until you rewire your body enough. So doing energetic cleansing, reading books, going to seminars, all these things are going to expose you to the right kind of people, the right kind of information, and the right kind of energy. So the level of consciousness that we're injecting into our experience or what we're trying to create will determine the outcome. Okay. Now we're talking about action. Okay. So you can't sit there and meditate all day and you have to, again, it depends on what you're trying to create. I'll use the example of building a business. There's stuff you have to do, or you have to at least delegate them to other people. And then they are attached to your field. Because if there's no alignment, just taking random actions aren't necessarily going to get you the results. Sometimes that happens if it's intuitive, but if it's done out of space of lack or fear or whatever, it's not going to work. So it has to be aligned. And how do we do that? Well, we get into a state of alignment first by doing all the things that I've been talking about. And don't worry, guys. I mean, this isn't something that you're going to do perfectly, because there is a correction arc. As long as you make the corrections and you realize and you learn and you embody what you've learned. So it's a constant process of refinement. But you also have to have access to the right information. And when you learn to turn into that source-driven aspect of you, or that soul aspect of you, this stuff becomes second nature. And we start to disidentify from our external environment and our ego. Because up until this point, that's running the show. Oh, heat the Sharon. It really sucks. But this is not for the faint of heart. So there is a book that you can read that will really, well, there's a couple of books actually that you can read on this topic. The first one is called Rich as Fuck by Amanda Francis. Highly, highly, highly recommend that book. She gets into the energetics and she talks a lot about money. And so she has this one chapter where she talks about, it's called There's No Such Thing as a Fixed Income. And she talks about some of her past clients who have done her courses and how they just, money came out of fucking nowhere. Well, and that's what happens. It's just, once you get to a certain level and you believe in what you're doing, shit will just came. Like I just had $500 show up yesterday. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it. Just fucking came out of nowhere. So, I mean, this really does work, but you have to believe in it. But when you they all kind of fit together, those laws. So when you have a level of openness and readiness, you're going to be accepting and inviting of this information because you're ready. You can't force yourself if your system is still kind of in lackadaisy mode. When you've experienced enough of what you don't want, you will get to a point where you're like, okay, show me the freaking way. Let's get this shit done. Let's get this party started. And as you learn it, it becomes embodied because you're doing it. Now, for a lot of people, it's going to be a little bit more subtle. For me, in my experience, it's been very black and white. Either it works or it doesn't. It's like, I don't sort of manifest a deal. Either I do or I don't. And it's at the point for me now where it's so subtle, like I can tell in 2 seconds if I want to work with somebody. And I don't work with people who aren't aligned because it's just a waste of time. And you learn, and as you go through this, and as you start to, value that because your frequency demands of it, you'll learn to recognize in your business, if you are a creator, of who is aligned and who is not. I would rather work with less aligned people than more people who are not aligned, because people who aren't aligned, they will not get any benefit out of this, and I can't help them. And that's just an energy drag. So if you guys can relate to any of this kind of stuff, share in the comments. If you ever worked with people who are very draining energetically, like, we're talking about this isn't about your time. This is about your essence. This is about your life force. We want to work with people who we sync with. Now, from time to time, life will bring along somebody who you don't sync with. And that's usually because there's a frequency distortion that needs correction. And that's where the fractal aspects of this comes in. Okay. So we've talked about action. Now, here's the nuance that derails a lot of people, is that people will, they'll get all excited and yeah, thanks, Ava. You'll be around people who are, they'll get started, they'll be doing all the stuff, they'll get excited, blah, blah, blah. They define the dream, they start noticing synchronicities, all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, the thing that they want, it gets delayed or it doesn't show up. And this is where people get frustrated. Now, the key to this is to stay detached. This is like a foundational teaching in Buddhism. There are lots of videos on YouTube where you can go brainwash yourself on how to be detached, because you need to continue to broadcast that signal of clarity and of coherence in order for the thing to come in. Maybe that thing wasn't meant to come in at this time because there was something else that you needed to learn, and it was going to actually create something even better than you could have imagined. So say you were trying to go on a vacation and there was this retreat that you wanted to do. I don't have a retreat yet. This is just some fun artwork that I made. You're trying to book it, and you can't get a hold of the travel agent, and say your credit card didn't work, or these constant blocks are getting in the way. Well, that's because it's not the ideal thing for you at that time. And then now an educated person would say, okay, this is interesting, and they're going to pull back. And then a week later, they get an email from their travel agent saying, this retreat just came up and it's way more of what you want, and blah, blah, blah. And they're having a 50% off sale. And you wind up going on that retreat and everything just lines up. Your energy lines up, the synchronicities, your credit card works, you get, then the next thing you know, you get to the airport and you get upgraded to business class. Woo! So this is how these things work. It's like getting all the green lights versus getting all the red lights. And if you try and so there's a lot to it's once you get into the flow, it's a lot easier. It's just getting into the flow for some people that takes time. Okay. Now, here's the hard truth. This is not casual work. This is a course correction. This is about life. And so if we don't course correct, we have to change our complete worldview. And over time, that will happen. The biggest thing that people have trouble with is the identity piece, because they're so certain that they're this and they're that and they're that. And that is fine. It's just that when it gets tested, people get defensive and they cling to it. And this is where the detachment is important. Because you can't be attached to being known as a good person or being known as a this or a that, because it creates resistance. And especially when it's in the way of trying to create something that you want. I'll give you a little secret. This is the undertone underlining towards inner peace. Because you develop like I said, it becomes a lifestyle. And you develop this foundation, you develop these practices that will help to keep your energy stable and to help keep it becoming cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and returning to your core signal more and more every day. And you will go through periods where it's just like for 6 months, it's all green lights. Then you might hit a couple of rough patches where it's just red lights, or there's bumps. All of a sudden you're driving down a logging road. But the point is to keep going. And the way that you keep going is by staying engaged. And you stay engaged by, like I said, going to events, reading books, watching videos, and using your discernment, to see who has good depth and who doesn't. And one way that I've learned how to do that is because this was something that my field required, was learning tarot. So there's so many moving parts to this, but it starts with making a commitment to yourself to learn this information because you want to experience the life of your dreams. I mean, that's the bottom line. So, okay, I'll take some questions. Does anybody have any questions? The hard truth. So the thing is, guys, we are always manifesting, whether you're doing it consciously or whether you're doing it by default. Most people are doing it unconsciously, and they have my line of work. So it's energy calibration, and I build systems, energetic systems for people to align with their own truth so that they can create the life that they want. So it's part coaching, it's part energy work, and it's part constructing new energy systems. because there's so many different layers to this. And I'm doing it in such a way that aligns with my truth. Well, Ava, it would seem that, if you're interested in this kind of material, then this is, I mean, that is the biggest, that's the biggest takeaway right there, is if it's something that you're drawn to, because you will know if this kind of stuff is right for you, because you'll be drawn to it. That's the biggest telltale. I mean, I've been interested in this stuff for years. Oh, incidentally, I do have a practitioner certification program in the works. It won't be for a while, but it's definitely something in the works. I had an awareness as a child of I just always knew the truth, but I didn't really know much about that. It wasn't really until I was a teenager and I was actually able to sort of start understanding this kind of stuff. I mean, I was kind of raised in this kind of stuff my whole life, but I never really understood. I mean, as a kid, you don't understand the mechanics. Yeah, I was raised in a, not exclusively, but was raised in a organization, like a spiritually based organization, which I'm still connected to loosely. But this was something that I gave birth to. Well, my field gave birth to this, and this is actually a continuation. This is a lineage thing because my grandfather was also into spiritual work, so it's kind of like I've picked up where he left off because he had a very short life. He was doing energy work in the 50s and in the 40s. He was a chiropractor, and he found that by learning how to manipulate energy with your, you know, he could actually give chiropractic adjustments without even touching people. It was amazing. Now that takes a very energetically gifted and tuned person to do. My area of expertise is bringing awareness and teaching the steps and building systems. So that's why I built this code. Because the truth is that this information has been around for thousands and thousands of years. It's nothing new. It's just that most people, they don't know where to find it. I mean, it's all around us, everywhere you go. I mean, especially if you understand symbolism. Perfect example. Tarot cards are nothing but symbolism. Because symbolism and stories, that's why there's stories in the Bible and stories in all these other mystical books. It's not step by step like it is today. It's because that's the way they taught for a couple of reasons. A, because, oh, hi, Gigi, Jessica, William. One of the reasons was because the information was flat out banned, like in the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages and stuff. That was one reason. So a lot of organizations had to go underground to teach this information. And they would teach it in stories because by doing so, it bypasses the conscious mind. And we have a lot more scientific information and knowledge now than we did before, than we did 500 years ago. So hence, that's why it gets taught this way. But the other piece was with symbolism. With symbolism as well is the same thing, is because it bypasses the conscious mind. And it bypasses that resistance. Once you've gotten past the resistance, it's a lot easier. And that's why being open is so important. Because you're in that feminine energy of openness and curiosity, and your aura becomes your energy field becomes very inviting, and you become more receptive to learning. So this runs far beyond any productivity hacks and all that kind of stuff, because that stuff, while it does work for a period of time, it will always lead to collapse, especially if you're doing it against your own grain. Hi, Carly. So this is why. Hey, Taddy, how you doing? Yeah, we're talking about manifesting and creating the life that you want. That's why energetic alignment is absolutely key. And anybody can learn it. You already know it. It's just a question of getting the conditioning out of the way, because that's what's standing between you and whatever it is you're here to create. Everyone is here to create something different. I mean, if you scroll through TikTok, you will see that there are just, oh, it's going pretty good. Yeah, I've been on for about an hour and a half and just having a great live here. We're talking about some of those things that you and I had talked about previously. Not so much the um more just the teachings. So, oh, excuse me. So, yeah, it's oh, thanks. Thanks, guys. So yeah, there is the information is everywhere. You just have to know where to find it. And me being the person that I am, just went on a I've been on a relentless journey to find the truth and bring it to anyone and everyone who needs to hear. And I have gone to great lengths. I've studied with ancient mystical organizations for years. So I can categorically tell you that meditation is very powerful. Visualization done properly is very powerful. Telepathy is real. Okay. If not, you can just shoot me a DM later. One of the key skills that you can learn in doing all this work, and this is why meditation is so powerful, is concentration. Calming the mind, because when the mind becomes calm, you become coherent, and you then emit a much cleaner signal. You see why these monks have been meditating for thousands of years in a cave? You don't have you don't have to go sit in a cave. But what do you mean? Oh, hi, Christina, what do you mean? I look like I can do finances. When you understand your energy, it makes life so much easier, because you take the pressure off. You stop punishing yourself for doing things a certain way because you think or you've been taught that they're supposed to be done a different way. And when you don't do them that way, or when you try, you feel exhausted because you're not designed to do them that way. I'll give you an example. Paperwork. Blech. I learned a long time ago, I don't do paperwork. I pay somebody to do it for me. Because there are people out there who, I don't know why, but they love doing paperwork. I hate it. Hi. Hi, Celeste. Thanks for the follow. Thank you all of you for the follow. It's very appreciated. People ask me why I do this. Because I have to. Because it's in my innate design. It's in my DNA. If I don't do this, especially at this point in my life, if I don't do this, I experience nothing but resistance. So that's why I do this. Thanks, Celeste. So I do one-on-ones. You can go to my website, alluracode.com. I also have a podcast where I talk to other creators, other visionaries, other coaches, healers, because it's part of this broader process of getting the word out that people need to learn to connect with their own divinity. Because let's face it, the state of affairs of the world right now it's a freaking mess. We need to get as many people on board with this movement as possible. And different people are going to resonate with different. Thank you, Ava. Thank you again. We need to get people connecting with their power. We need to get people resourced so that we can be doing this. It's essential at this, especially at this juncture. Okay, let's do an exercise. All right. I want everybody to, because a lot of people, they like the idea of this, but most people are so disconnected from their body that they don't even realize that this energy is real. Like, it's fucking real. But if you understand physics, you know that it's real. Because we are electrical beings. It's called piezoelectric. And you've got all these billions of electrical signals running through our body, and it emits a magnetic field. And I talked about this earlier about the heart and the brain. The Heart Math Institute, they figured this out back in 1991, and they've got 35 years of research to prove it. Because I had a guy on here last week. He's like, "Show me a peer review thing." I said, "Dude, go do some research." I could recommend 1,000 books. Incidentally, books. So, is anyone here interested in like ancient mysticism? Because this is where the real secrets are. Anybody? Think about that. Okay. So, energy. Okay, Ava, send me a DM and I can send you a list because I'm not going to remember all of them. If anyone is interested in a list of books, send me a DM. I will respond and I will let you know. Okay, everybody do this. Actually, everybody do this. Okay, and then do this. Hey, Aki. Okay. Just pay attention to your hands. Anybody feel anything? Should be able to feel, you might feel pulsing, tingling, heat, cold. It's so cool. My energy is very stable today. If I try and, it's funny, like if I try and push it together, I'm getting a bit of resistance. But then once I stop, then I feel the reverberation through my hands. It's wild. It's there. It's all around. Think of it this way. When we move our hand, when we move through space and time, like if you were to start jogging, you'd first of all you'd work up a sweat, but you'd also feel a slight breeze, right? Why is that? It's because we're moving through space-time, and it creates resistance. This is why cars have to be aerodynamic. This is why spaceships have to be aerodynamic. And this is why when people go out into space, they lose body mass. Because it's the gravitational pull or the movement of the Earth around the sun, which is bending space-time, which is creating gravity. So when we move, we're moving our energy, we're creating our own gravity, which is a draw. It's actually more of a dance. So, okay, I'm going to need to wrap up pretty soon. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah, there you go. So that energy, when used correctly, it heals and it creates. Because that's consciousness. And it also sounds, Ava, that you're probably sensitive to energy anyway. So, hey, Mackenzie. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. All right, guys. Well, this has been a pleasure spending a couple hours with you here. I will be back. I will be live again over the weekend. Not sure when yet, but stay tuned. Bye for now. And if you haven't, yeah, Ava, yeah, send me a DM and I'll send you that list of books. And as I said, check out my podcast, Allura Code, on Spotify or Apple, and it's also on my website, alluracode.com. For those of you who want more information about services I offer, you can check that out on my website, or you can also send me a direct message.